Hello, all my little weirdos, and welcome back to Freaky Fridays, where each week I bring you along on a tale of legendary ghosties. Grab your life jackets because this week we are taking a boat to the middle of the San Francisco Bay in California, an isolated island that Native Americans once used and later on became a U.S. Army fortress, to becoming a place where the most horrific and notorious criminals were held, and now being used as a tourist attraction. Let me introduce to you the famous island known as The Rock, Alcatraz, aka Alcatraz. Because this is strictly oral tribal history, the details are a little scarce, but we do know a little bit about the early life of Alcatraz Island. The Ohlone tribe claimed their ancestral homelands within the area of Alcatraz and used the island for a few different reasons. It was a spot they used to camp out while hunting and fishing, making it an excellent place for them to gather things such as bird eggs and sea critters. They were also the OGs who made it a sort of prison for their tribal members when taboos were violated. They believed isolation was a severe punishment. So what is lethal injection for us today, that is what isolation was for them back then. So they would place these tribal members on the island to physically separate them from the community while making them survive on their own in that isolation. Which I'm sure you can imagine some would go crazy in the medulla after some time of being alone. Another reason they chose Alcatraz Island to isolate their people is because even they could feel the negative energies on that island back then. So they left the criminals to face their wrongdoings with the evil spirits watching. And some Native Americans who died on the island in isolation joined the evil spirits in the afterlife and have been reported being seen as an apparition haunting the grounds. So moving on to when the island was later used as a military base in the 1850s, it was known as the primary prison for the military for the West Coast. So this place really was destined to be a prison from the get-go. It has been frequently reported that ghostly figures in the 19th century attire can be seen patrolling the abandoned hallways. And some reports have also been made of hearing phantom gunshots. But one of the most famous stories that comes with the military ghosties is when the warden of the Alcatraz jail had a Christmas party at his house in the 1940s. The guests were surprised by an apparition that suddenly appeared of a man dressed in an 1800s suit, a brimmed cap, and those really thick sideburns, like the mutton chops that they used to have back then. I think that he was just coming by to say hey, because just as quickly as he appeared, he vanished just as fast. But before he went, the room turned extremely cold and the fire in the fireplace went out. So now let's get into the crazy stories from when Alcatraz Island was home of the prison who held the most notorious criminals. This prison opened in 1934, but it didn't last very long as it was closed in 1963 due to it just being too expensive to operate and maintain. Because it was on a remote island, it made things 3 times more expensive per inmate than a regular prison. This place held the infamous Al Capone, aka Scarface, George Machine Gun Kelly, Arthur Barker, aka Doc, who was involved in the Ma Barker gang, and many others. One of the most famous reports from previous staff and guests is hearing banjo music coming from the cell that held Al Capone, which is crazy because he actually learned how to play the banjo while incarcerated at Alcatraz. Block D is known to be the most haunted block in the joint, as I'm sure it is because a lot more prisoners went crazy on this block. Block D was known as the treatment unit. It had 42 cells and the prisoners were held there with no contact with the gin pop. They were allowed 1 visit to the rec yard and only 2 showers a week. Their meals were also served to them in their cells, so they were pretty isolated on that already isolated island. More money and security was put into the D block after the escape attempt that left Doc Barker dead. Cells 12D and 14D are the most active on D block. 14D is known to be almost 20 degrees colder, and a lot of guests have reported feeling strong vibrations and tingling in their arms and hands when standing in that cell. A ghost hunter actually came to the island and locked himself in the 12D cell, which is said to be the home of an evil spirit. So he almost immediately felt icy fingers wrap around his neck while he was having visions of the bodies of twisted, mutilated men. Perhaps one of the scariest things to happen on Block D is when an inmate was put into the hole. A former guard of the prison reported seeing a ghostly figure of a man dressed in 1800s prison attire walking the hallway where the hole was located. And the inmates that was in the hole started screaming that someone was in there with him. And although these were like blood-curdling screams, the guards did nothing because that's just how prisoners were treated on the island. The screams abruptly stopped sometime in the night, and the prisoner wasn't checked on until the morning. What they found was the cold, dead body of the prisoner with a horrified expression on his face and very visible handprints around his throat. An autopsy was done, and it was ruled that the strangulation that killed him was not self-inflicted. Now, many say that a real guard, a human guard that is still alive, slipped in and strangled the guy because he wouldn't stop screaming, but others say it was the ghosty guard that was roaming the halls. The abandoned laundry room is also a wild place to be while on Alcatraz. A psychic guest made a trip to Alcatraz Island and reported seeing a tall, bald-headed man with beady eyes once she entered the laundry room. It was confirmed that she was actually seeing one of the infamous inmates who was a hired hitman before being incarcerated. He went by the name The Butcher. And this inmate was killed by another inmate in the laundry room, and his murder remains unsolved. Many guards have also reported smelling a strong smoke smell coming from the laundry room, and when they go to investigate, the room is completely filled with thick black smoke, and it literally just disappears as quickly as it formed. There were also 3 prisoners who tried to escape using the utility passageway, but they were unsuccessful and died in the process. That utility passageway has gotten a lot of reports of loud clanging that stops once the door is open and resumes once the door is closed again. So I think they're just little tricksters. There are also disembodied voices heard and apparitions of men wearing prison fatigues at the site of a riot that killed 3 other inmates. It has also been said that you can hear random crashing sounds, running footsteps, screams and moans, chains rattling, cell doors that close on their own, and just the overall feeling of being watched while visiting Alcatraz. And to that I say good luck, because it could not be me who steps foot on that island. So that is the story and history of our spooky isolated island known as Alcatraz. If you have any other ghosties you would like for me to do an episode on, drop a comment below. And until next time, bye!